Good morning. And welcome on this drippy, drizzly Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you. Today we're going to discuss everyday spirituality. Now, doesn't that sound everyday spirituality? Wouldn't we like to be everyday? Live up to our spiritual ideal every single minute of every day? Yes. There was a very interesting, I'm going to start with something extremely mundane, interesting article in the New York Times about a week or two ago on nuns and nuns, N-U-N-S's and N-O-N-E-S's. It's an experimental program that I think his name is Bromstein, and he developed this. There were millennials who were very successful businesswomen, very successful, but wanted to spiritualize their lives. They felt they want to live a spiritual life, but not a religious life. They want to do good to the humanity, take care of people, work in fields where they're promoting social justice, all of that. And then they wanted to learn a little more about how to do this without burning out, without lessening their spirituality. So this gentleman decided that he would solve two problems at once. The dwindling number of nuns, as we tend to be an endangered species at the moment in all religions, and these young, as they're calling themselves, millennials. The millennials moving in to the convent to live for 6 months gave income to the convents, which they didn't have, and it gave the millennials a less expensive place to live so they could pursue their unselfish works that they were doing throughout the community. Well, it became very clear after a while to the Sisters of Mercy that what the millennials really wanted was a roadmap to life and ritual. They didn't want religion at all, but they wanted a roadmap to tell them how to implement their spiritual ideals. Okay, so this has worked out well for them so far. And the millennials left, they spent their 6 months there, and they felt they wanted to pursue that again. They're doing this in quite a few Catholic convents throughout the United States. I thought it was a really interesting idea because we hear so much talk in today's world about, yes, I want to be, I'm a spiritual person. I don't really follow a religion. And this used to throw me kind of I kind of went, okay, but what does that mean? And I think it's becoming clearer and clearer. People have a definite idea of what they consider spiritual. I think with the advent of, or the popularity of Buddhism and various sects of Hinduism, and the newer age psychology telling us how to be a better person, how to have success in life, have all defined what we call spiritual. We have to make that definition very clear in ourselves, because as one of our nuns once told a devotee, if you don't know where you're going, you may not get there. Now think about, where are you going? How do you define a spiritual life? What do you mean by when you say, I'm going to live a spiritual life? But I don't necessarily buy into churches. And I understand that completely, because there's been a lot of abuse by the churches throughout, especially this last century. But we do have to define what we mean by spirituality. I'm going to start with religions because that is their whole thrust. I mean, they are the institution in society that specializes in spirituality. So we'll give what Buddhism says. Buddhism's main thrust is hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Okay? Christianity says it, do unto others what you would want them to do to you. Hinduism says, whatever you consider injurious to yourself, never do to others. This is the essence of Dharma. Islam says, no one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself. And Judaism says, what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow man. That is the entire law. The rest is just commentary. Now, when we take a look, I always love the Jewish faith. They take themselves very seriously, but they do know how to make fun of themselves. We once had a rabbi come in, and he was giving a lecture, and he said, you know, the miracle of the Red Sea parting was not that the sea parted. It was that the Jews all went in the same direction at the same time. And I've never forgotten that. I thought, okay. But did you notice, with all the statements of all the religions, they say exactly the same thing. Treat your fellow man as you want to be treated. And they almost say it in exactly the same words. Now, how many times did you hear the word God in those statements? Not once. From my point of view, having taken up Vedanta, it's perfectly clear to me that all religions see the divinity in human birth. Because if you are treating your fellow human beings as you yourself want to be treated, this is recognizing the divine nature, to my way of thinking. Now, these are not real complicated directions, are they, on what to do in life? In fact, they're extremely simple. And we've heard them from the time we were like this tall, no matter what culture we were brought up in. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your neighbor as yourself. Maybe these directions are way too simple. Because by and large, we are beings made up of a body-mind complex. And our mind gets very busy. And we start thinking things out. What do they mean? Treat everyone as I would want to be treated. What does that really mean? Now, I mean, we can think ourselves into absolutely immobility or inscrutability. We can complicate anything we take up if we think it hard enough. We tend to do that as human beings. We want to analyze. We want to look at it, every single side of it. Well, if it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, does that mean, what does it mean? And we can complicate it. Okay, but let's accept for the moment that it really is that simple, religion. That it is that simple. We can know who we are simply by being, as the Dalai Lama said, his religion is kindness. Swami Vivekananda said that the best example of unselfishness of the incarnation of the avatars is Buddha. He took up his path following no religion. He had nothing to gain, and he realized his true self. What Vivekananda called Buddha was the perfect karma yogi. He realized God without theories of religion, theories of God. He realized immortality simply through action. Putting out the word of do not harm your neighbors, do not harm. All the other incarnations came with a different message at a different time. So if we accept the fact that religion is religion, or spirituality is really as simple as just behaving well, and being nice to your fellow man, not taking advantage of them, how do we put it into practice? Well, if you want love, you be loving to everyone you meet. You don't start discriminating about, well, this one's worthy of. You don't evaluate. You simply are love. If you want people to listen to you, how do you get them to listen to you? You listen to them. It's really not a complicated situation. It really is a simple thing. If you want people to be polite and well-mannered around you, be that way to them. If you want people to be rude to them, because you will get back what you put out. This is what, and everyday spirituality is just simply looking at ourselves, knowing I want to say who we want to be, but that's kind of not true. It's who we really are. Look at who we really are, and are we manifesting that? Are we manifesting the fact that we are our nature is divine? It's covered by a whole bunch of veils, which we have to kind of part the curtains. But it's not difficult. It's just we have to start. And we start where we are. We look at where we are. Are we treating everyone that we meet and run into as if they were manifestations of the divine that you're meeting every day? And if you don't want to believe that they're divine, are we treating them like we want to be treated? Are we ignoring them? Are we dismissing them because they're not dressed properly? Are we dismissing them because of God knows what reason? But do we want to be dismissed for those reasons? No. So we just have to, it's a hard practice. It's a very difficult practice because you have to analyze yourself all the time. Look at your motives, look at your the reasoning behind what you're doing. Am I helping? Am I volunteering at, I'll say Transition House because that's what we do. Am I volunteering at Transition House because, number one, I feel I have to? Now, why would I feel I had to? We have to go deeply into ourselves and find out what is lacking in us or in our ego that says you have to do it. Is it to make myself feel better about myself? Is it to make others think better about me personally? Or is it because I want people to recognize Vedanta as a church out there? You have to really analyze why you do things. And that takes a great deal of discrimination. You have to then look at, yes, we all have egos. Guess what? And they're all pretty healthy. We have spent a lot of our lives infusing them with health. We have made, particularly in our Western societies, who put a great deal of emphasis on self-achievement. Many of the Protestant religions, they equated success in business as being close to God. I can understand this because according to Vedanta, or maybe it's my version of Vedanta, any degree of success in any field, when someone exceeds the norm, that is a little more spark of the divine. They are showing a little more of their divine power. Star athletes, outstanding actors, outstanding for the right reason politicians. But all of them are manifesting a certain power, which is a little more of the divine showing forth. Unfortunately, the way we start that way is when we're about this big, exerting our ego. It's mine, this is mine. We set out our delineation of our space, our identification. And once we've got it firmly in place and well-defined, then we go, ooh, doesn't make me real happy. Doesn't make me satisfied in life. I guess I'll start breaking it down. So we spend the second half of our life breaking down this ego that we have really worked hard to get. And we identify with a lot of external things. As Devadatta said last week, to have a foundation to work from, we look at Patanjali and see the yamas and the niyamas. Now, I'll give you the briefest. Let me see, I have to find them. Yeah, the yamas and the niyamas, which the yamas deal with your interaction with the external world. The niyamas deal with your interactions internally, how you build your basis there. So we have non-injury, non-stealing, truth, non-covetousness, non-greed, and what's the last one? Come on. I just have to find where. Okay. Non-injury, truth, non-stealing, chastity, and non-greed. Those are the yamas. They deal with your external world. The niyamas with your internal world are purity, contentment, austerity, which sounds real scary, study, and devotion to the divine. Now, austerity, what they mean is just practice, discrimination, putting your things, looking at yourself. We have another. So if we get those things straightened out, we start out by just basic, really, really basic morality and ethics, which are common in every single culture. Also going back to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How does our everyday spirituality manifest? Okay, we've had, do you remember the movie Paying It Forward? Doing things, random acts of kindness. There's a new promotion, which I'm really behind, Hello Human Kindness, where they're emphasizing positive acts of unselfishness. Because if you notice all of those basic tenets of all the religions, think of others first. Think of others before yourself. Know yourself, but then think of others. It's the only way we can expand our being to include the whole world and be at peace and be content. It doesn't mean you have to be an namby-pamby who just lets everyone walk over you. Keep your personality, but think of others. And it manifests in so many different ways. It's calling that person who's housebound. It doesn't take much time out of your day. Call them, say that you're thinking of them. Volunteering at different places. Santa Barbara is one of the most wonderful towns I think I've ever encountered. People are so generous and so volunteering. And they do, as a city, I think of others. They're always thinking of ways to improve this selflessness. But I'm sure each one of us could make a little list of things we wish we had done. Oh, shoot, I didn't make time. Now, we have plenty of time. Time is kind of one of those things. The other thing that we tend, and I do this, I think all of us do it, we want some downtime. You're busy all day long, you're going out to people, you're doing all these things, and you think, I need some downtime. I need some time to myself to recharge. Yes, we do. We do need that. But how are we using that time to recharge? Are we sitting there watching TV, putting absolutely oatmeal in our brains? Oatmeal's not one of my favorite things. That's why I use that as an example. Or are we going out for a hike in nature, seeing the beauty in nature, seeing God in the world? Like the song that they sang this morning, Never Forget. Brahman is everywhere. And everything you see is Brahman. Okay, so you need your time to take a little time. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel keeps saying, yes, everyone needs, especially when you're busy in the world, needs time out from the world. Now, time out from the world, his solution was go to a solitary place and meditate, go to a solitary place, pursue your religious beliefs, pursue your meditation, or go keep holy company. So there's many, many retreat places in California. They're all over the world. I think everyone can find a retreat that they can go to for 3-4 days. Leave your devices at home. Check out. You can do that even in your own house. Forget your cell phone. Don't turn on anything. Don't listen to the news. We have a friend who said, for Lent, I have given up the news. Because she said the news was upsetting her so much. She put so much emphasis on it that she said, I just gave it up for Lent. So don't tell me anything that's going on in the world. We can all devise things to increase our spirituality. If we, as our nun said, if we define what we think is spirituality. Because as she said, if you don't know where you're going, you may not get there. You have to know where you're going. that mean, do you want liberation from this life? Do you want success in this life? Do you want freedom? Do you want to be satisfied in this life? What do you want? Do you want God? I mean, we really have to think this out and then just go for it. It's not difficult. We just stand in our own way. We've been told over and over again, any one of us could realize God in 3 days if we put our whole mind on it. Any one of us. It would not take more than 3 days. Well, it's obvious to me I must not want it that badly. Or I get distracted. Because and I believe the person who told me, because he was God realized. He said you can do it in 3 days. Anyone can. But we still have desires. And desires are what hold us here. Now, that's not bad. Desires are just simply human. That's all. They're human, and we all are. If we can elevate our desires by directing them to God, if you happen to believe in God, or to the infinite, or simply I desire things for others. I want everyone in the world to be happy. I want no one in the world to suffer disease. That's not going to happen because the world is in perfect balance. But our desire can be unselfish. St. Francis, I know many of you would be, here's another way of implementing everyday spirituality. I'm sure you're familiar with the St. Francis prayer, many of you. Everyone heard of it? Okay, I will read it to you then. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. I remember back in the 60s when I first encountered Vedanta, this was extremely popular for memorization for people when they were starting meditation in many groups. I happened to meet Ishwaran in Berkeley, and he recommended that everyone memorize this because it's a wonderful for him. He said it was a wonderful place, a wonderful prayer to meditate upon. Swami Prabhavananda said, choose a portion of the Gita and meditate on that. We are given so many options on how to train our minds to be spiritual. And that's all it is, because our innate nature is spiritual. We have covered it over with distractions, junk. It's like eating too many potato chips, junk food for the mind. And all we have to do is reorient our emphasis. reorient ourselves to spirituality. It just, everything in life is nothing about defining the goal, practicing, and dedication to achieving that goal. Maybe that's too simple, but to me, that's how you get success in business, how you get success in life, how you achieve anything. Sports, know what you want to do, go for it, practice it, and be dedicated. Go through all of the tiresome parts where you get discouraged. Just stick to it, and you will achieve it. So now I'm going to ask each one of you to, well, maybe not each one, anyone who will, tell me how you define spiritual, everyday spiritual being. You all come to the temple. I know I recognize almost every single face. So how do you put it to work out there? How do you see other people putting it to work? Okay.
By enjoying yourself in your environment.
Okay.
And looking for the best in where you are. And
that's good.
put
Yeah.
the good foot forward.
Put the good foot forward. Okay. Anyone else? Uh-huh.
As I said, by coming to Vedanta regularly, by reading, by meditating, by having practices in place that help keep this front of mind, so that then we can be ready for those opportunities to remember how to behave, how to think, how to experience.
That's ideal. To keep, like David Dutta said last week, get your foundation built. So you are ready for those occasions when they take you by surprise. So you don't react. So you're always an actor in life rather than a reactor, where you have trained your mind and controlled it to the point where you can take those count 10 before you burst forth. That's always been a hard one for me because I was like not a patient person. Dawn?
Other people's happiness is more important than mine.
Okay. But see, that's thinking of the other person before yourself, putting them before you. And that's an interesting thing. Do we want happiness? Or do we want contentment? What does contentment mean to most of you? To me, it means being satisfied or happy with whatever comes. There's not the great elation that that I attach to, oh, I'm so happy. But it's a quieter thing. And which one do we want in the long run? Yeah?
I think of happiness as a gentle vibration that is sort of like a melody.
Okay.
Not to mean spending time. Doesn't need to be a big rocket, but
Okay.
like a steady pace walk. Happiness, you're happy then.
Yes.
I don't know.
No, I mean that's that I would say my definition is much closer to yours because it's something that it tends to be optimistic and trying to see the best in what's happening rather than looking at well, of course today I got up and I went, it's foggy again. I like the fog. Sometimes. But it's not, we need it. And I do appreciate it. It's keeping everything green. I like that. It's just I grew up in Seattle and I'm really tired of it. So I think, something that's a steadier kind of positivity.
I like that you said, you know, that you're grateful for it because it's community breeding.
Yes.
Spirituality is a lot of thankfulness.
It is being grateful for what we have, being recognizing what we have. So many times we don't even recognize what we have until we have rejected it or lost it. And then we go, oh, I wish I had that again. And other times we think, if only I could have that, I would be so, everything would be perfect. Well, as every religion has said, beware of what you wish for. You may get it. And it isn't what you thought it was. Because everything there's two sides to everything. That is the world. You can't have good without having bad. You can't have truth without having untruth. You cannot have one thing without the other. And they are, generally speaking, in perfect balance. There was a story of, I think it was Shiva and Parvati, and they were up in Vaikuntha, and she said, why can't you make everyone have a perfect house so no one has to work? And so Shiva did. And all of a sudden, the plumbing went bad, this went bad, that went bad. Well, there's no one to do the work because everyone is completely satisfied. You have to have everything in the world for it to continue working. To my mind, if you don't want to believe in God and you want to just simply live a spiritual life, I think that's kind of difficult, but that's okay. If you want to call it a higher power or you want to call it whatever, karma yoga is the one for you because we never quit acting, right? Every single thing we do in life is action. Every thought we have is called an action. So every person is acting all the time. Karma yoga is a system that you do every action unselfishly. When I first read this, I thought, oh God, this is really easy because you have to work all day long anyway. Not easy. Because we all expect to be praised for those things that turn out well. And if not praised, at least recognized for having done it. We do want that. That's our ego speaking. Karma yoga says this is not how you work. This is not what it is. It is do every single action and thought to the best of your ability and drop it. Go on to the next work. Don't linger in the past. Don't project forward. Simply do the work in front of you and move on to the next. Because you never will quit working. We think, I need a vacation. You're working the whole vacation. If you want to make it a little bit easier, then you do the actions and give them as gifts to God. Because somehow it's easier to let go of something if you give it. To just walk away, detach yourself is, what? Okay, I'll try. This takes a tremendous amount of discrimination and a tremendous amount of self-analysis. But it works. And you arrive at exactly the same place the philosopher arrives at through his, well, I'll read you how Swamiji said it, because he says it way better than anyone else can. Karma yoga, therefore, is a system of ethics and religion. intended to attain freedom through unselfishness and by good works. The karma yogi need not believe in any doctrine whatsoever. He may not believe in God, may not ask what the soul is, nor think of any metaphysical speculation. He has got his own special aim in realizing selflessness, and he has to work it out for himself. Every moment of his life he has to solve by mere work, without the help of doctrine or theory. The very problem to which the jnani applies his reason and inspiration, and the bhakta his love. So we are all reaching exactly the same realization through our various manifestations of spirituality. Those of us, in Vedanta we say no one is completely one or the other. We all have portions. We have a natural kind of tendency. But we have to apply all of them. You apply the love that the bhakta has for the Lord. You apply the reasoning and thinking that the jnani applies to everything he does. And you work in life. That's it. Then we added, you sit down and meditate and go inside. And if we can balance those, then you have an extremely firm foundation for living every single moment. As you said, keeping things in the forefront to be able to react, to be able to act in a positive manner and the way we would like to present ourselves to the world and the way we feel. We feel good about ourselves when we do unselfish things because that is our very nature. We really are one with everyone. And that's why we feel good about ourselves when we are not selfishly grabbing everything to ourselves. It's why we feel good when we see why we emulate people who give up their lives for perfect strangers. I remember there was a man who threw himself on top of a woman in the New York subway to save her, and the train went over both of them. Both of them lived. But he had no idea who she was. And it was his natural instinct, save her life. We find those things heroic because we know we are all one. You are your neighbor. You are the person next to you. We all have the same desires, the same interior. So as soon as we can put that into action every day, then we are living a spiritual life. I found it interesting that Swamiji said the karma yogi does not need to believe in any doctrine or any God. And this is exactly what the millennials were saying. They wanted to realize their spirituality through their work and their good works. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all, yet Brahman remains the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.